Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, Premier of Nevis, and the host of this show, and I'm very grateful to be spending my Wednesday evening with you. Over the years, we have been here each Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. for still the Federation's only commercial-free talk radio show. And so we are delighted that we've been able to do this for all these years. I keep saying thank you and kudos to the law firm of Daniel Brantley. They have paid for this privilege that we have to be on the air for all of this past 2 decades. That's 20 years or thereabouts that we've been here, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also, of course, grateful to Vaughan Radio, the management and staff, particularly my brother Weber Herbert, who has made it possible and given me this incredible privilege to be here each Wednesday. So long as I'm available, I've been here sharing with you, having a conversation with you, and conversation that we think matter, conversation that are important to our democracy and to our development, and which we hope assist in the quality of discourse and quality of discussion that we have in our country. So welcome to one and all. I say good evening at the start to the wonderful people here in Nevis, those in St. Kitts, those who are listening from around the Caribbean. I know we have lots of listeners all across the Caribbean. I want also to say good evening to our friends and family in the United States and Canada, those in the United Kingdom, where I know we have large numbers of listeners, even though it's late for those in the UK. Many stay up to listen to On the Mark. That's the level of dedication that our fans have around the world, and the extent to which they look to the show. In fact, just on my way here this evening, someone sent me a WhatsApp message to say they're hopeful that a particular caller calls in, because that is their weekly source of mirth and merriment, the laughter that they get from that caller. So it's a show that is listened to by many, and we are thankful, because without you, obviously, we have no show. Without the listeners and without the callers, we have no show. So I'm grateful to you. I always say that this is your show. It is paid for, of course. It is here. It is for you to air your views. And all that we ask of you, is that you be respectful. That's all. We feel that we have a tradition of respecting each other, and this show is trying to do its part for us to engage in respectful debate. We don't have to agree. In fact, I don't ask anybody to agree with me. I remind people that even when a perfect man walked the earth, the Son of God, that many people disagreed with him. And so we cannot expect all human beings to agree. That's a given. What we can expect is that we try our very best not to be disagreeable. And we've had some calls in the recent past which, in my view, dishonored Nevisians. Some may feel that they're calling in and their anger is directed at me. But you're really dishonoring Nevisians, because I know the standard of Nevisians is far higher than some people are willing to exhibit. And so for me, this show is important because it is the only show of its kind that tries to maintain that standard and that level of discourse and engagement. Of course, the other shows on Vaughan Radio, Let's Talk, and those equally insist on the same. But this platform, which can lead to a lot of heat because the other shows are not political shows like this one, we ask you to be hot if you need to be hot, be passionate if you need to be passionate, but let's not descend into disrespecting each other. Let others who are listening, and we know each week we have far more listeners than we have callers, so let others who are listening walk away with the impression that Nevis is a place where sensible, reasonable debate can happen. And you know something that I've learned in my life here on earth, and I think I'm mature enough now to speak to certain things, that if we learn to listen to each other, we can learn a lot from each other. I listen sometimes to my worst detractors, because you never know when they may say something. You know what they say? A broken clock tells the correct time twice a day. If your clock is stuck on 6 o'clock, it will be right twice a day, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So you can learn something. You can get some nugget even from people who you disagree with, provided you're prepared to listen. And I find too many of us are not prepared to listen. We only want to be heard. We only want to talk. we feel somehow that we have the answers, or we feel entitled. In fact, some call this show my show. My show. They call this show and they want to direct and dictate what happens. And we see that attitude sometimes displayed. In my experience, those tend to be the ones who have the least to offer in terms of a discussion. So I encourage you, if you must call, write your thoughts down if necessary. And when you call, let us engage with each other. I like to have a conversation, and I keep saying that. It's important for us to engage in dialogue, not just the monologue. That's important. So, good evening to one and all, and welcome to this show. We hope that we could have an interesting show tonight. I have a few things that I want to update you on. But let me start by extending very warm congratulations to those who might be celebrating. Happy birthday, happy anniversary. If you're doing those celebrations, I have not had any specific word, but I do know that somebody that is very, very dear to me, Mrs. Joan Pemberton, recently celebrated her 80th birthday. And I want to extend my warmest wishes to Joan, Mrs. Pemberton. I can't describe how incredible that woman is. A woman of God, a woman of Brown Hill. She has been there, and she has always been there for all of us. And I am not related to her by blood as far as I know, but I feel sometimes like I'm one of her children, because that's the nature of Joan Pemberton. So Joni, if you're listening, happy belated birthday. I know you had a big celebration. Regrettably, I wasn't there, but you are in my thoughts and my prayers always. That will never change. And so I wish you a happy birthday, and I pray and hope that God grants you many, many more birthdays. And let me also say happy birthday to Judith. Of course, you know, we must remember our people. It's very important. We must remember our people. And you can't remember Joan and not remember Judith as well. And so happy birthday to all of you. I know the children would have made you feel very special, Joan. And so I just want to extend my quota of birthday wishes to you. And then tomorrow, the whole of Neve is going to come to a standstill, because my friend Shirley Glasgow in Bath will be celebrating her birthday. I saw Shirley recently, and I don't believe Shirley is any more than 22 or 23 years old, because she looks so young, she looks so wonderful, and she has the energy, the vim, vigor, and vitality. So Shirley, my Shirley, happy birthday. If you're listening, I pray that tomorrow God blesses you abundantly, and I want you to have many, many more birthdays, Shirley. I love you. You are a wonderful, wonderful human being, and I'm happy to know you. And I'm Novalika and Valon and everybody is going to do their best to make sure your children and grandchildren are going to do their best to make sure that you have a wonderful time. And so I look forward certainly to speaking with you tomorrow, and certainly I am hopeful that you have a wonderful day tomorrow. Happy birthday, Shirley. Happy belated birthday to my dear friend Joan Pemberton. And happy birthday to all of you who are out there and who might be celebrating today. I am truly, truly happy that so many people would be celebrating, and I extend my warm wishes, congratulations, commendations to you. Let me also, on the other side of that, extend condolences to those who might be mourning. I have hitherto mentioned that we lost one of the Hunkins family. I want to extend condolences to my very dear friend Thelma, and to my very, very dear friend Lorna, and the entire Hunkins clan. It's an important family here on the island, a very large family, and I'm advised that the deceased will be laid to rest tomorrow. I got word this evening that the service, the homegoing service, which had been scheduled for 2 p.m., I'm told now, will happen at 10 a.m. at the Anglican Church in Charlestown, the St. Paul's Anglican Church. Let me also extend the deepest condolences to Dr. Shandy Jacob, who all of us know. He would have lost his wife, Elizabeth. She was buried yesterday in a very moving service at the Methodist Church in Charlestown. And I want to extend continuing condolences to Dr. Jacob and his two daughters and the entire family. We all knew Elizabeth Shandy Jacobs, the wife, and we all know her husband and the significant contribution that they made to Nevis. They've lived in Nevis for well over 30 years and have made their mark here in terms of service. And I was very touched at the outpouring that we got yesterday at the homegoing service for Mrs. Jacob. And the reason I was touched is because part of it speaks to the nature of the Nevisian people. Because Dr. Jacobs and his wife are not from Nevis, but they chose to make Nevis their home. And Nevisians embraced them. And the church was full yesterday. People came from all over to be there, to show their last respects. I say all the time, if you want to know how somebody lived, then attend the funeral. See who shows up. Because that is sometimes an indication of how that person would have lived and the people that that person would have impacted. And so certainly I extend my ongoing and continuing condolences. To Miss Kay Brooks, my friend, if you're listening, I extend condolences to you on the loss of your mom, to you and your entire family. I'm told that she too will be laid to rest tomorrow. And certainly we have had a really deep sense of mourning around and across the island as we have lost loved ones. And so I certainly extend my deep condolences to Kay and the entire family as well. To all those who might be mourning, I may not have called your name because perhaps I have not had the information, but please, I also extend my condolences to you and pray and hope that things will improve and that things will in fact get better. That for me is very important. We lost a young man, Mr. Kelvin Fraser, who had been struggling for some time. Is one of those individuals who had renal failure, and we would have lost him. I will also want to express my condolences to the entire Fraser family. This young man was a teacher. He was well loved and really made a significant contribution to education in Nevis. And his loss is our loss, and I want to extend my condolences to the family. For all else out there who are mourning, those who might be at hospital, those who might be ailing in some way, please know that my thoughts and prayers are with you, and that you continue to know that people are praying for you. And my hope would be that the prayers of the multitude would comfort you in your hour of distress. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark, and as I said, we have quite a bit of ground to cover. Quite a bit of discussion that I hope we can have. Let me start out by some breaking news. As I sat here this evening, I got the news coming into my phone that at long last, there appears to be a ceasefire in Gaza. And that is between Israel and Hamas. I am advised from the news items that Hamas has agreed to release the hostages that they cruelly and terroristically took from Israel on that fateful October. And Israel has agreed to withdraw troops from Gaza to an agreed line. I would want to commend President Donald Trump of the United States for his role in this, and also commend governments in the Middle East, particularly our friends in Qatar, who have been instrumental in negotiating this peace. I am hopeful, I am prayerful that this will be a lasting peace, and that ultimately we can get to that two-state solution that certainly St. Kitts and Nevis, during my time as foreign minister, subscribed to. In fact, whilst I now see France and the UK and other countries recognizing the state of Palestine, I was very proud during my time to be the foreign minister on behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis to recognize the state of Palestine. We feel that the Palestinian people and the people of Israel must find a way to live at peace with each other. And so this today is a welcomed step in the right direction. And I wanted to share that with you because I think it's important that the bloodshed, the violence that we saw being played out on our television screens, even though we are a world away from the Middle East, that would come to an end. And so I'm hopeful that the parties, both Hamas and Israel, the actors in this conflict, that they will honor this peace, and that this first step will lead to a lasting peace between the Palestinian people and the people of Israel. Let me move on. There's been a lot of talk, as we know, about a proposed development on the south coast of Nevis. The government has, as my government is wont to do, we have responded in a measured way with actual information, not conjecture, not hyperbole, not hysteria, but with actual information. Along the way, we've seen all kinds of people weighing in. I have come to the certain conclusion that based on what some of them are saying, they are either ignorant of the actual information or, far worse, they are actively trying to mislead the people of Nevis. We have decided, consistent with a commitment that I made when I spoke on August 11th, August 25th, 2025. I made a national address at that time. And I made the commitment that there would be public consultations on this proposed development. I am very pleased to announce tonight that those consultations started yesterday. We had a packed room because we invited the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the Bankers Association to a meeting. And we had great representation from St. Kitts and from here in Nevis. I would judge that we had over 50 attendees, and we had a 3-hour active engagement with those in attendance, where we were able to answer questions, put to bed some of the myths and misconceptions. For example, one person alleged that the SSZ bill was passed first, second, and third reading in one sitting. That was false, and so we were able to correct that and to indicate that the SSZ legislation was introduced for the first reading in July and then came back for the second and third reading on the 11th of August. One other gentleman said that he thought that the government had already signed an agreement and that we were advising people off after the fact. That too is false. I made it pellucid that my cabinet has been locked in negotiations on various aspects of the proposed agreement and that no agreement has been signed as yet. And so, again, we need to clear up these ongoing misleading statements that are out there. I reiterated the fact that the lands at issue are private lands and that the developers are engaged in negotiations with private landowners. The developers have said that they are buying lands for those who want to sell, and for those who do not want to sell, they are apparently swapping lands. That is, they are purchasing lands in other parts of the island and exchanging those lands for those who have lands in the target area. And therefore, what that means is that those people will not be left without lands. They will simply have lands in a different part of the island. So a lot is happening, ladies and gentlemen. And I am here and will be here, and my team will be here to break things down. One thing you can be certain of is that when I speak to you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, I speak to you factually. Some of you may not like me. Some of you may not like my politics, but one thing I can assure you of, I will speak to you with the facts, the truth, the hard truth, nothing but the truth. That is what we bring. And so I can't respond to every rumor and every allegation and every innuendo. Every day there is something new. That is not my job. At the end of the day, our people will be able to sift the wheat from the chaff. You will be able to determine what is true and what is not true. I am told by the developers that they will shortly be releasing information to the public. When I say shortly, within a matter of days. And so, when they do that, the public will have a first look at what this project is going to look like. What benefits are anticipated to the government and to the people of Nevis, and how this project is intended to proceed. The project, I am advised, will be done in phases, and there are some aspects which will be done jointly with the government and people of Nevis. What I mean by that is that there are some developments in health, some developments in infrastructure, which will be done by way of improving our existing infrastructure. And what that then will mean is that we, the people of Nevis, will benefit in a tangible way by having that improved infrastructure available to us and available to our children and their children for generations to come. This is a dynamic process. I do not, as I sit here tonight, have all the answers, but I can tell you that the cabinet has been working day and night, engaged in this. In fact, it was on Monday night that the cabinet met in a special session from 6 p.m. until I believe we went after 8 p.m. engaged again in discussions about this. It has been a matter that has kept us alert, engaged, and active in terms of where we are. Now here's the plan. We intend to engage various stakeholder groups. We have engaged, as I said just yesterday, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the Bankers Association. It is our opinion, and based on the feedback that we got from the business community, a very positive engagement, where they're left with actual hard information for the first time about the development and what the development is about. We have extended an invitation, that is the cabinet, to the opposition in the Nevis Island Assembly, the Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmons and the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. They are the opposition in the Nevis Island Assembly, and we have extended a formal invitation to them to meet with us on Friday. That is to meet with the cabinet on Friday to brief them in terms of the project. We then intend next week to meet with the churches on the island. I believe the invitation has gone out to the Evangelical Association, the Christian Council, and our brothers and sisters in the Seventh-day Adventist faith. We also intend to meet with tourism stakeholders, our hoteliers, our taxi operators. We intend to meet with our young people. We intend to meet with our police and fire services. And we also intend to have a broader island-wide general town hall meeting. Put differently, we are hoping to cover almost everyone on this island and to have the opportunity to engage with those who wish to have accurate information about what is proposed. I will also point out that many people have alleged and accused that this government is involved in some type of secret deal, some negotiations or discussion shrouded in mystery. I would say to those people that the legislation that was passed on August 11th, 2025 is the very first bit of legislation that I'm aware of that requires that any agreement finalized with developers who wish to establish a special sustainable zone has to go to the Parliament. Let me say that again. Any agreement entered into to establish a special sustainability zone has to go to the Parliament. In the case of any zone proposed for Nevis, it will have to go to the Nevis Island Assembly, and it also has to go to the National Parliament in Bastia. In the case of a zone proposed for St. Kitts, it has to go to the National Parliament in Bastia. Now, why am I emphasizing this point? I'm emphasizing this point because we have had numerous developments in our country before. We had a development at Christopher Harbour, Marriott, Park Hyatt. We've had here in Nevis at the Four Seasons, Tamarind Cove, Paradise Beach, various developments of various size and significance. What I can say with some great degree of conviction is that none of those agreements have ever seen the light of public scrutiny. The Four Seasons has been here now for 35 years. Let me ask rhetorically, has anybody seen the Four Seasons agreement? Do we know what taxes, what concessions have been given to the Four Seasons? Has that ever been to the Parliament? Has that ever been to a town hall meeting? The answer is no. Marriott, Christopher Harbour. Does the public, you and I, know what those agreements contain? The answer again is no. Here we are now with what some are characterizing as this secret agreement. But by law, this agreement must go to the Parliament. And if it must go to the Parliament, then there is no more public space than the Parliament in the country. And so I think that despite the protestations to the contrary, there is clear evidence for those who bother to actually read and try to understand what is happening here, that this SSZ legislation is a quantum leap forward, because for the first time in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, the people of the country will be able to see what the agreement entered into by the government with a developer is. Whether you agree with the contents or you do not agree with the contents is a different matter. But you will be able to see and to know what those contents are. That is unprecedented. Never happened before. First time it's happening. And so, quite contrary to the allegations about secrecy and things being done in secret, this is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that any agreement will have to go to Parliament. Never happened before. And I think that the framers of that legislation must be commended for putting in those safeguards and ensuring that this agreement has to be ventilated in the public space. It has to go to Parliament. So right here in Nevis, the representative from the NRP on the opposition benches and the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons, two members opposite, they will have copies. In St. Kitts, the members on the opposition benches will have copies, because these matters have to be debated in the parliaments. Must be debated in Nevis, must also go to St. Kitts, the national parliament, for a zone in Nevis. So, there's no secrecy. I've heard all the chatter. Some of it, I simply shrug and say, ignore the noise. Some of it, I've had to respond to. But when you put all the chatter to one side, you start to realize that far from secret, far from some obfuscation, this legislation actually mandates a very clear process and says that whatever is agreed must come to light by law, because no zone can be declared under the SSD legislation until that agreement is passed in the Parliament. Mark Brantley, Terence Drew, or whoever can't just up tomorrow morning and tell the people a zone has been created. No, 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 no. It has to be passed in the Parliament, which means it has to be debated in the Parliament, which means it must get the light of day on it. No secrecy. Transparency at work. That is what is at stake here. So while I hear all the conspiracy theorists, and I hear, oh, this is a done deal, this deal was already signed off on. Nonsense. Abject, arrant, foolish nonsense. This has to be debated. It has to be ventilated. It has to come to the public. It has to go to the Parliament. And the Parliament is the biggest public square in any democracy. And I am happy about that. When I went to the Parliament and I supported this bill, it's because this bill had in these types of safeguards. I'm happy about that. I can also confirm that I have written to the members of the opposition inviting them to nominate a member to the independent oversight body that under the legislation I as Premier am given the right to put in place. I intend to invite other interest groups also to nominate members, and we have highlighted that those members must have some expertise. Put differently, I don't just want you to send me a political hack. I want people with some expertise, demonstrated expertise in engineering, architecture, project development, project planning, finance, law, that type of group that we're trying to put together. I've had a response from the Honorable Janice Daniel Hodge saying that she requires more information. She wants to know this and she wants to know that. We'll get to that in time. And then the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons has sent me informal communication to say that she too would like to get some additional information. Well, we have invited them to a meeting with the Cabinet on Friday. And it is my hope that they will come to that meeting. And during that meeting, we will hope then to inform them about this project, about what is anticipated, and about where we are as a Cabinet in terms of the negotiations with developers as to what is proposed. And so I just wanted to go on record to say that we are well now and truly on the way in terms of those public consultations that were promised. And I ask the public to listen out, the youth groups to listen out, the police and fire services to listen out. I ask, of course, our taxi operators and our hotel and tourism stakeholders to listen out. And certainly our churches who pray for us every day, I ask them to listen out because we want to hear from you. And the reason why we want to hear from you is because your views are helping us to shape and inform our position in relation to this significant development that is proposed for the south coast of Nevis. So I wanted to just make that clear, that consistent with our commitment, we have embarked on that particular path. We see this as democracy at work, and we see this as an important opportunity to engage all stakeholders. Where have you ever heard in the history of St. Kitts or Nevis that the opposition has been invited to a sit down with the Cabinet to discuss a project? I keep telling people, you may not like this government, but this government has demonstrated, that it is open and transparent, and it has nothing to hide. Whether you agree or disagree is a matter for you, but the evidence is quite clear. And if anybody can call in, and I'm going to open the lines soon, and point me to where on any project opposition has been invited to come into the Cabinet room, sit with the government, hear about the project, get information firsthand, so that they don't need to go out there and guess and speculate as has been happening. Because every morning a new story breaks. Who is involved and who is not involved, and what is involved and what is not involved. And I keep saying to our people, just take your time, man. Wait for the information. When you have the information, then you can engage. Just yesterday in the meeting with our business leaders, it was quite clear that a few of them simply did not have the information. Not even the information that was in the public domain. Because some of them had some views that were simply unwarranted, unfounded, and unsubstantiated. And so, as one explained, hey, you know, we've been listening to all the chatter, and that we feel this or we feel that. Well, we can't control how people feel. What we as a government can do is to give people hard information and then allow people to make up their minds. In the interim, so many people, especially young people, have been calling me and saying to me, listen, when is this project going to start? We need work, we need activity. When is this going to happen? And the fact that it's being proposed for an area of Nevis that has not seen any development in 100 years, an area of Nevis which has largely been an abandoned quadrant of the island. No roads, no infrastructure, no water, no electricity. And the land over there is largely barren in nature. Large chunks of land falling into the ocean year after year due to erosion. And the idea that that quadrant, currently an abandoned and barren place, can be transformed into not only a jewel in Nevis's crown, but a jewel in the Caribbean and in the world, I think has ignited the imagination of quite a few of our young people who have been calling me and saying, listen man, let's get going. A young fella I saw, he does trucking. He said, man, I need my trucks to be moving. Let's get going. So we have to take into account all the views and all the opinions. That's what we do in a democracy. But at the end of the day, as I reminded someone recently, governments are elected to lead. And leadership, brothers and sisters, is a lonely place. As the Premier of Nevis, people see me, I put on my jacket and tie and I go to work, but you don't see the sleepless nights. You don't see the 4 o'clock calls that come. When they can't get me on my cell phone, they call my house phone. You don't see the people who show up at my gate on a Sunday morning because they have a problem. They have a concern. And it is for me to provide solutions, to provide a way. That's why people elect leaders. In this position, I am not all powerful, I'm not all knowing. I'm neither omniscient nor am I omnipresent. But I recognize that I have a responsibility. And that leadership often is a very lonely endeavor. Sometimes I say that as others are sleeping, I'm praying. I'm asking God, please show me the way. Because a lot of times I can't see the way myself. But you know, God is a wonderful God. And the Bible tells us not to lean on our own understanding. And what I have found is that when you ask God to show you the way, God shows you the way. And I have found that to be very helpful in my leadership. That with all the noise and with all the cruel attacks that are made, that if you are true to your purpose, if you rely not on your own understanding, but on the wisdom, that fountain, never-ending fountain of wisdom that God provides. If you're prepared to listen and to humble yourself knowing that you do not know everything, that at the end of the day, you're able to make decisions that are better decisions. But ultimately, brothers and sisters, leadership is a lonely endeavor. And you stand or fall by the decision that you take as a leader. And sometimes what I realize is that a leader must have vision even when others do not see. I always use the example of 4 Seasons, and I go to my mentor, national hero Sir Simeon Daniel. When he brought 4 Seasons and agreed that 4 Seasons be open, the naysayers were out in force. They said people would not be able to go to the sea. People can't pick coconut. People can't catch crab. But he decided that this was the correct move for Nevis. Who today, 35 years on, would dare to say that the 4 Seasons has not transformed this island of Nevis? It has. And so what Sir Simeon was able to do was to have a vision that perhaps the people who were there at that time did not have. That is leadership. And so leadership sometimes says, I hear everybody, but I must do what in my heart of hearts, and having prayed and having consulted, what I feel is the best for my people. And that is what I'm seeking to do. Having consulted, having listened, having prayed, to take decisions that are in the best interests of our people, even when some of our people claim that they can't see it. You know, as we talk about this project, one of the things that has come to light, there are some people on this island who are so infected with small island mentality. Despite the level of their education, they cannot come to grips with any project of scale because they feel that it is either too big or too good for Nevis. There are some people who have no difficulty with the shop that's selling bread and sardine because that is the level to which they are accustomed and the level to which they feel the island must stay. But when you start to talk about significant development, not GDP growth of 2 and 3 and 4%, but GDP growth of 150 and 200%, those people become alarmed because they can't imagine it. There are people on this island, believe it or not, who feel that certain things are too good to be true. They're too good. And I hear questions like, oh, well, why would they come to Nevis? Why they don't go someplace else? Implicit in that is that you're saying Nevis is not good enough to attract investment. Why would this hotel want to build in Nevis? How come they didn't build it in America? Well, if everybody had that idea, then the island of Nevis will never attract any investment. And so, brothers and sisters, it does not tarry unduly. Negativity will always be there. In the Bible, there was Thomas. And if my Sunday school teachings are correct, when Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you, it was that same Thomas who started to ask, well, how are we going to find the place? How are we going to get there? And that is why they have the language, I'm told, of doubting Thomas. You know, they say people are doubting Thomas. Is that same Thomas from the Bible? Look, everything Jesus said, he asks a question. He is the one always who say, well, how I know that is true? How are I going to get from point A to point B? And Jesus said, well, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, then at some point I'll come back and receive you unto myself, so that where I am, you too may also be. Because in my Father's house there are many mansions. That is what he responded. But the doubting Thomases have existed since biblical time. They're still here. But what I say to you, and I hope he's not offended, but I will quote Rawlinson Isaac. Rawlinson Isaac said something at the meeting. Stuck with me. He said, you will never know what is in the ocean if you are afraid to leave the shore. I want people to think about that. You will never know what is in the ocean if you are afraid to leave the shore. Those may not have been his exact words, but that's my takeaway. And I'm going to quote him again, because at the funeral service for our late Governor General, Sir Edmund Lawrence, he gave a tribute. That is, Mr. Isaac gave a tribute. And he said words that he attributed to Sir Edmund. And those words were to this effect: if you do what you always did, you will get the same results that you always got. And I do a morning message every morning to try and encourage people. And I already said I'm going to have to put that up. If you do what you always did, you can only get what you always got. Put differently, you have to think outside the box. And you know, this country has had significant thinking outside the box that has helped to propel us. You think it's easy to be the smallest country in the hemisphere. You talk about you're independent. You talk about you have a seat at the UN and have embassies around the world. You know how difficult it is to run a country. You hear big countries crying about not having the budget for this and that. Well, imagine us. We have had to be innovative. And one of the great innovations was the Citizenship by Investment program. way back in 1984, when nobody else had thought of it. St. Kitts and Nevis thought of it. That CBI program has now been copied. Grenada copied, St. Lucia copied, Dominica copied, Antigua copied, Malta, Portugal, Greece, Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, all of them have some version of citizenship by investment or residence by investment. But the idea was born here in St. Kitts and Nevis. In the law of the jungle, when you're small, you must be more nimble, you must be faster. You must be able to be a chameleon. You disguise yourself so you blend in with the trees and with the leaves because you don't have the might of the lion or the might of the elephant. We have to make our way in the world, and to do so, we cannot shy away from innovation. We cannot shy away from looking at development in a different way to perhaps the way that we've always seen development. One person at the consultation said to me that Nevis is so quaint and quiet. We need to keep Nevis quaint and quiet. And I said, yes, I love the quaintness and the quietness. But as Premier of Nevis, do I not also have an obligation to the hundreds of students who will be graduating in June and July of next year? The sixth formers who are looking for work? The young people who go away to study, and after 3 and 4 years they have their degree first class honors. And it pains me when they say to me, I must stay in America, I must stay in Canada, I must stay in the UK, where the weather is hostile, and now in some of those countries the policies are hostile to immigrants like us in those countries. It pains me because when they say they have to stay, it is because they cannot find opportunity for growth and development in their own country. Many of us don't talk about that. I see so many people who are our best and our brightest. Where are they? So recently somebody sent me some photos from the NEV DC event in Washington DC. And I started to count the number of doctors and PhDs in the group that I saw. Brilliant people. Nevisians. But their talents are not in Nevis. They are using their talents to build America. And in many of those instances, because I know some of them personally, they went away to school and they never came back. They got an opportunity out there. And I don't know because I can't speak for them, but I often wonder, what if those opportunities were available right here in Butlers, right here in Bath, right here in Barnaby? What if those opportunities were available right in Newtown and in McKnight and in Taba, so that our people, if they chose to stay out there, then it would be their choice, but not a necessity. So yes, would some, and I hear some tourists sometimes, and some of our expat community, I love them, they contribute, but some of them have this view, a romanticized view of Nevis. Oh, I remember when people used to be riding on donkeys, and it was so wonderful to behold. Oh, I remember when there were not all these street lights, and we could see the stars more clearly. I remember when there was no talk about airport, and all we had was a little strip, and we'd go by Millie and eat Millie fried chicken. There's some people who romanticize these things. And I had to say to a dear friend the other day, I said, you come to Nevis and you spend a few weeks each year and you love Nevis, and we are so happy that Nevis is so welcoming and so beautiful. But at the first sign of any health issue, you're on the first plane out to America, to Europe, to get medical attention. You've gone home. When you want modernity, you crave the trappings of the first world, you get on a plane and you're gone. Your children are born into a world where they have a host of opportunities. Nothing is beyond them. They can become millionaires and billionaires because they're born with opportunity surrounding them. And then you say, I must come to this little place that is stuck in time, where nothing is happening, nothing changes, and the people here are riding around on donkeys because it is quaint and quiet. I don't know about you, but I love quaint and quiet. I also feel that there can be development that, if done right, doesn't destroy our quaintness or our quietness, but creates opportunity for our people. Nothing makes me feel better than when I see Nevisians excelling. Start a little business. People ask me all the time, oh, you're going to eat at everybody's place. You're always posting people. The reason I do that is because if I can send one customer to a small business and help that small business grow, I feel good. We have to engender an environment where our people have opportunity. And as much talk as you hear, people saying, oh, don't sell your land, hold on to your land, land is this and land is that, all of which is true. I know a lot of people who have died in the grips of poverty who had access to land, but no capacity to do anything about that land. And land is an important asset, to be sure. But if you sell that land and you get a good price on that land, can you not invest that money in other land? In your business? In other assets, stocks and bonds and shares? In equipment? You see, some are suggesting to the people of Nevis that land is the only asset. And I use myself as an example. I have had the privilege of owning land in Nevis. And I know I had a piece of land one time and somebody wanted it more than me. And I tell him, all right. And I sold that piece of land. And I used the money and bought another piece. Was I worse off? So people are almost as if they want to dictate to Nevisians what Nevisians must do with their property. Well, I know nobody could afford enough to come to dictate to me what I should do. And so as Premier, I don't think it is my job to dictate to anybody. Because if you can't tell me what to do with mine, I should not be so presumptuous to say I could tell you what to do with yours. I think that I respect the people of Nevis enough that they must be given the opportunity to take decisions that is in the best interest of they and their families. How come some are able to sell their land, pocket their money, and then turn around and protest and tell other people don't sell yours? Well, so you're bright and other people stupid? I mean, the hypocrisy of it. The us against them. The it's good for me but not good for you. Let me fill my pocket. Let me take my money. Millions of dollars. Let me invest it in my health care. Let me invest it in other property elsewhere. But you should not have the same right. I don't subscribe to that. Let people make up their mind for themselves what they want to do. And that's why as government, we've stayed out of this whole land and who's selling and who not selling. Government has stayed out. We are not involved. We are letting the people of Nevis who own property to make up their minds about what they want to do with their property. And as I said, I'm hearing that some people have decided, listen, I don't want to part with property. So I have 50 acres, give me 50 acres someplace else. In fact, from what I'm hearing, these people are saying that they're actually swapping for a larger acreage. So a man may have 50, he gets 60 or 70 somewhere else. I don't know what the numbers look like. But that's up to our people. And I don't believe at all in this notion that some of us so bright and so superior to others that we see the value in selling our land, collect our millions, but then we turn around and tell you, don't sell. It's a bad thing to sell. So you didn't know it was a bad thing when you sold. And that is why I'm saying to our people, we are sensible people. Let good sense guide you. But my job as Premier of Nevis is to bring opportunities to this island. Because I do not want my legacy to be that our young people went away to study and had to stay away because there was no opportunity in Nevis for them. I don't want my legacy to be that the hundreds of youngsters coming out of school each year cannot find work in this, the land of their birth. We have to work together to create opportunities for our people. And we will continue our relentless exercise of educating, of informing, and allowing our people the opportunity to make up their own mind based on fact, not fiction. I will open the lines now. Take your calls. 869-469-1616. 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers if you want to be a part of the show. And the rest of the show, as usual, I tend to take up the first portion with my monologue, my soliloquy. The rest is yours. And we go right away to the phones and say good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Michelle.
Good evening, my friend.
Isaiah 41, verse 28 and 29. For I beheld there was no man, even among them, and there was no counselor that when I asked of them could answer a word. Behold, they are all vanity. Their works are nothing. Their molten images are wind confusion. Have a good evening. May God continue to bless all of us. Good night.
Thank you very, very much for that, and thank you as always for your scripture. You always start us off on the right foot. I hope you're going well, and I say good evening to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the mark. We're also live, of course, on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, and so for those of you who would want to participate that way, you can certainly log on, and as I like to say, share the live and get as many people involved. Send your cousin, send your auntie, send your brother the link. Let them be a part of the show. It's very important that we continue to have this level of debate and discussion in our country. The numbers again are 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call. The lines are open. Some nights people complain, say they couldn't get in. Well, this is your opportunity. So we ask you to call in and be a part of the show this evening. It is 9 o'clock on the dot. It means that we have 1 hour left, and we will be here, God willing, until 10. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead,
Hello.
please. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yes, sir. In section 6H2, well, I'm going to go to E first. E.
What are you talking about? Section 6 of what? Sorry.
Of the Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Bill.
Okay. Yes.
Section 6E, leasing of adjacent seabed.
Yes.
from what I understand is that we always we are making reference to Four Seasons and Christopher Harbor. None of these two has any lease for the seabed.
That is not true. Christopher Harbor, I'm told, has a lease of the seabed. They needed such a lease for their marina.
I see.
I can also confirm that Tamarind Cove has a lease of a seabed for their marina as well. Even though that marina has not yet happened, I know that they have a lease of the seabed.
Okay. All right, you have a lease of the seabed.
Yes.
I want to go back on a caller 2 weeks ago where they asked if there is a road that could be continued through the special sustainability zone from, if it is to start like on the Bad Village area, go around to the Gingerland area, if the Nivijans going to be able to travel that road without any hindrance. If we look at Four Seasons, for instance, we can travel on the main road and go straight. If we want to go into Four Seasons now, we're going to run into their security. So is that going to be, if they are to put a road to continue all the way to Gingerland area, would that be a problem for Navigans, for anybody who wanted to use that road?
If who's to put a road?
Well, according to what I understand, is that the developers are supposed to be putting roads into from Bad Village area into the special sustainability zone.
Well, that is not accurate because the zone does not run from Bad Village.
Wherever it starts from,
right.
Going towards.
So if they put in infrastructure inside the zone, that is not public infrastructure. That is infrastructure inside their property. Just like the Four Seasons, as you know, has many roads inside the Four Seasons, going up to their various villas and all of that. That is private infrastructure that they've put in.
Mm-hmm. So if they are to start wherever they will start from the area, from wherever they start their development, they're going to put a road from there, and it's going to be going towards their zone, and then nobody else as Navigans is going to be able to travel on that road to go into that area.
But of course, caller, Navigans, if they're going into the zone to shop, to work, to party, to dine, to do whatever they're doing, they will have access to the infrastructure to go to and from.
Okay. What about like fisheries, fishermen who like to do fishing in the area there?
Yes.
If they have leasing for the adjacent seabed, is that going to affect the Navigans, fishermen, if they want to fish anywhere in the area?
No, absolutely not. The difficulty, caller, is not with the seabed, you know. The seabed lease is not the difficulty. The difficulty is what does that lease contain. I could lease you my house. The problem is not the leasing of the house. It is what the provisions of the lease are going to be. And so, whilst I too have heard people talking about seabed lease as if it is something that is so alien and something that is so bad, the truth is that, as I've said, Christopher Harbor, I'm advised, has a seabed lease for their marina. I know for a fact Tamarind Cove has one in Nevis. In fact, I'm advised that even at Port Zante, for the piers there's a seabed lease. Seabed leases are necessary if there's going to be any fixture put into the seabed. So in this case, if the people are going to be building a marina, for example, they have to put pilings into the seabed. They have to put infrastructure into the seabed. And so they must have a lease to allow them to do that. That is the understanding. So what has happened, unfortunately, is that people have taken this and made it into some kind of bogeyman and say, oh, they have a seabed, so that means seabed lease, so that means fishermen can't fish and all of that. None of that is accurate at all. So those are just some of the scare tactics that people have decided to come up with. But that is demonstrably false. I have never heard, for example, in St. Kitts that anybody can't fish because Christopher Harbor has a seabed lease. I've never heard on Tamarind Cove that people can't fish. The fishermen who are in that area of Nevis are not allowed to fish because there's a seabed lease. The seabed lease is designed to allow a developer to put infrastructure into the ocean, and infrastructure that is going to impact the seabed. You can't build a pier, for example, Port Zante, unless you put pilings into the seabed. You can't build a marina unless you have infrastructure that is embedded into the seabed. That is why the seabed lease is mentioned, and that is why it is important.
Okay. Still on Section 6, 2, military defense. What does that mean?
Well, what can you read the section? I do not have the law in front of me. So when you say military defense, what does it mean? I need context, please. What does the section say?
Section 6H, Section 6H2 talk about military defense, foreign affairs including treaty negotiation, execution, and ratification. 1, military defense. 2, citizenship and residence. 3. Does that jog your memory?
Well, Carl, I think context is important because that's why I asked you to read it, because what this section, as I understood it, is saying that these areas will remain with the law of the current law of St. Kitts and Nevis. So under the legislation, there are certain areas that are carved out to say that, listen, those areas will remain with the current law of St. Kitts and Nevis. I hope that...
So military here does not mean from the developer's end.
No.
From whatever laws I think it's Nevis laws.
Right. So it's saying areas of foreign affairs, citizenship, residency, I think it mentions voting, military, treaties, all of those are areas which will remain according to the laws of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I see. All right. Thank you. I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, and thank you for your call. I really appreciate it. And feel free to call back in if you have other questions. We're taking your calls, ladies and gentlemen, at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call if you'd like to be a part of the show this evening. I'm very grateful to that caller. He had some good questions, and hopefully that's the type of debate that we want, where we can really ventilate the issues and put certain things to rest. And obviously, if there are new points to be raised, raise those as well. Let's go straight back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to help the gentleman, or help both of you clarify the first part of his question concerning the access. Because he referenced the Four Seasons Road. I think what he's trying to ask is this. If you have a zone, say, Lighthouse, just call in a place, and there's a road from Long Point to, say, Hanley's Road. If you are driving from Long Point to go to Hanley's Road, would you be able to pass the zone and go onto Hanley's Road, just like you leave Charlestown and you pass Four Seasons and go onto Jessups?
Yeah, but caller, there's a fundamental difference. You're not driving through Four Seasons when you're going to Jessups.
No, what I'm trying to... Okay, what he's trying to say is that...
How you know what he's trying to say?
Well, not what... what I think he's trying to say.
Okay, I hear you now.
what I think he's trying to say is
yes.
that if you're going to leave Bath or leave Long Point and then you're going to go onto, say, Hanley's Road or wherever,
yes,
however far, but the zone is en route to Hanley's Road, would your access be impeded in any way?
Well, I think the answer to that question would be an issue of who is the owner of those lands that you are trying to traverse. Because if those lands are private lands, let me put it differently. If you had, for example, a coastal, if you wanted to move from town, using the example, to Jessups or to Cotton Ground, and you wanted to drive along the coast to do so, you clearly could not drive through Four Seasons property. You would come along and you would drive at the road currently that is there is not along the coast. It is where it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue really to me is, are we going to have access to the various areas in Nevis that we need to get to? Because if you start to debate now whether you can drive through people's property to get from point A to point B, that to me is a different debate.
Okay,
you can,
but implicitly what you're saying is that there's no immediate plans per se of having a road, a South Coast road then.
No,
before the zone.
No, well, it would not make any sense in my humble opinion for us to go and spend, because when we had this costed out, it was over $40 million was the estimate. For us to go and put in that kind of money to create a road in circumstances where the lands in the area are private lands, and if these people can negotiate, they will be purchasing the lands. So why would the government spend money to put in infrastructure? Let them put in their infrastructure for their zone.
Okay, let me conclude by saying, suppose the developers put a road from, say, Long Point to, let me come a little closer, maybe as far as maybe Brownhill Bay.
Yes.
And they have the zone there. And there's need in future to go beyond Brownhill Bay, to go onto maybe Kokolawa Bay or Hannes Road.
Yes.
How would you factor in that?
Well, in terms of factoring that, if the government is going to put in infrastructure, the government must put in its infrastructure where it can. So, similarly with that South Coast Road that I've heard people mention and that we were contemplating at one point, we would have had to compulsorily acquire land or negotiate with people to take their land to put in the road. So, similarly, if it is that there is a need that people are seeing for a road to take them from town to Gingerland, and they don't want to use the existing road that is quite good and there and available to them, then we will have to find a way to acquire lands to build that road.
Yeah, because you're going to end up with a dead end from Long Point to the zone.
Well, you have a dead end now when you're driving to Four Seasons. So while I hear you, you see, part of the difficulty I'm having right now, Carla, is that when this debate is happening, it's an important debate, but it's almost as if people are saying that you can currently drive and there's a road there that takes you from point A to point B that you will be losing. There is currently nothing there. And so we might have had a road, a coastal road at one point which took you to some point. That has largely gone into the sea due to erosion. People have been driving over people's land. The guts come down, you can only go so far. So it's not as if we're saying, well, we're giving up a road that was existing and that you and I are accustomed to drive, go through Bath and reach Hanley's Road, because that has not existed in my lifetime, and I don't know how old you are, but certainly I don't believe that has existed in the last 75 to 100 years.
Okay, take the coastal road out of the picture.
Yes.
How would the government, including Minister of Works and so on, factor in a road from Long Point to the zone, and then you're going to put a roundabout, or how are you going to come back to town,
or come back?
Yeah.
Well, I think, Caller, that would probably be just like you said, maybe a roundabout. I don't know. That's an engineering issue.
Okay.
You know, they will design that, you know, in terms of how that will work. But from what I am seeing, if the zone is created, and I say if, then inside the zone, you're going to have the infrastructure that is put in. That would have been our cost as government. So we are saying to them, no. You're coming, you must put in your own roads, your own water, your own waste disposal, your own electricity, right? All of those things you must put in, because you're not going to burden the Nivision taxpayer with those things. So they are, by law, having to put those infrastructure in for themselves, so that you and I don't have that burden of paying for any of that, right? Okay. So that is really the model that is being proposed.
Well, and my last point, the recommendation from me personally, I would say, well, if you go as far as Lighthouse with this zone, well, if the zone is as far as Lighthouse, then they would have cut the cost of a South Coast road. They may not quite half, maybe 40, 60. So it would be easier now for the government to continue a South Coast road going Hanley's Road.
But let me ask you, Caller, and it's a genuine question. While I hear the idea, do you think that a road as you have described is necessary? Because if you and I want to get to Gingerland now, we have beautiful roads that get us to Gingerland. So what is the
not really necessary, but then and the same point of opening up the south coast,
yes,
or the southeast coast, or the southwest coast. That is what that would do. You open up from Long Point to Lighthouse.
Yes.
So opening up from Lighthouse to Hanley's Road.
Okay. All right. So it's a question of opening up the area. You're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I hear you. Okay,
All
caller. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate the call. Thank you. Let's go back to the phones and take some more calls. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Crazy. Yes. I'm having a problem here. I'm having a problem that we have people thinking that before people start investing their money, that they did not do a feasibility study. They did not do investigations to determine what is it they want to accomplish, how they would accomplish, and what it would look like. When I hear callers talk about, the road in that south area, for me, as a little girl who have traversed that area all the way to the lighthouse in my primary school days, I know of the old fishermen, because my father was one and other persons who we walk with, pointing out who these lands belong to, and that they were linked by old estate roads, and it is like one big estate, and it's just estate road, not government road, because it's not government property. So that's one of the problems. There's another thing called reconfiguration. I don't know if they can't understand it. The roads in Nevis were reconfigured. When we go over there to Four Seasons, remember at one point the main road was right there by that mill, old estate.
Absolutely, that is true, yes.
And then it rise again. And then the road was reconfigured again when we get over there to Orly. So it's like, as we go out these things, the people who are doing their development over there, they can determine whether they want access from only one end or they want access from both sides. And if they decide that they want access from both sides, and we go in for whatever reason, to participate, to work, whatever activity we go there for, we may be able to exit at the other end because that is how they wanted. We don't know their plans yet. We haven't seen anything, so we don't know. Another thing about those lands and what people don't understand is something called opportunity cost. There is something here in Nevis, the crab in a barrel mentality. And once you getting up, they're pulling you down. Or if you're from the poorest part of Nevis or the Pasha, as I would say, they look at you and say, how dare you want to come out of the Pasha and go to live to Uwali? Nevis is a place that practices reverse snobbery. You would leave here, you would go away to study, you would come back looking for your same old friends, and they're the ones who watch you full in the face to that experience. You say, Mommy, you don't move, and and they pull away from you, and you did not shove them away. And so this is something that we experience. Let's talk about opportunity cost. I personally know persons who own acres over in that area, and they have never paid tax since their father died 40-something years ago. They have never touched anything, looked at anything, or paid any taxes on the property. I know another set who have about 3-4 acres. They are great-grandchildren to the original owner. They live abroad. They have no interest in coming here. They have never done anything about the land. They have never thought about it, think about it. And so those are those issues. Why are we letting revenue sit down like that? When, for some of us, if we had sell 1 acre, we might have been able to build a house in the other end of Nevis to get another piece of property that was in a developed area. And so we are talking about understanding your choices, understanding opportunity cost. You can't have the cake and eat it at the same time. And I want people to really look at it and to really look at the property over there. Maybe to go and research the old maps to see what was public and what was not public as the road. Because, like you say, it was interspersed by us crossing over people's land to get to the lighthouse, to get from A to get to B. We were just going on an adventure. Some of us don't even know that there was an alley called Featherbed Alley and those kind of things. Because right now, too, we are not really talking to our children. Our children are engaged on social media, and so they don't know how an old map look like. They don't even know where the Jews' burial ground is located and things like that. So we really need to start looking into information. We need to research for ourselves and not be gullible to just solve everything that is told that us that it is so. We need to think. We need to think that the big investors, the big businessmen, going to do investing. Like last week, calling on that thing, like the government is the one who tell the investors, no, a man on the street say, hello, miss, good morning, how are you? How do you like living in Nevis? What is this? And that man is an investigator for an investor overseas. And so they're sitting at sunshine next to you, and you only say, how do you like the killer? And then one conversation starts from one to the next, and you don't even know that you are supplying information to investigators. So that is what I want to say.
Well,
I want us.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I want us to open our eyes. It's not always what we hear, but sometimes what we read for ourselves.
Caller, let me ask you, because it's been a topic that I have been belaboring as well. I'll give you an example of somebody who I think is my friend. I call him a friend. He said to me that he was very upset with me, and I asked him why. He said because I went down in Singits and vote for a law that will allow the government to take away Nevis people property without compensation and give it to white people. And I said to him, but where that coming from? Where would you have heard or seen such a thing? And where or why would I be so foolish as to say as a representative of people that I gonna go support law that does that? He said, yes, that's what I do. And I actually sent him the law. I said it's only 8 or so pages, 9 pages. Read it for yourself. Right? Because what I realize is that Parliament happens in public. It's on TV, it's on YouTube, it's on radio. The parliamentarians get up and say whatever they say. Then the laws are out there, they're public. And people neither listen to the parliament, listen to the parliamentarians, read the law. They wait for somebody to go on radio and tell them, this is what I'm going in the parliament and do today. And they run with that. It was right on this radio station where another pundit said that the legislation allows these people to come in and create their own country. And I said, well, could you point me to where it is? Oh, no, we can't find it. But had I not been alert enough that night to call in and challenge that falsehood, you realize that people would have gone away and say, oh, that's what I'm going to try to do. So your call to people, and you know what I find is difficult? We boast one of the highest literacy rates, not only in the Caribbean, but in the world. So why are we not putting our literacy to work for us? Why are we only regurgitating what we hear? Is it that we become lazy? What is the answer? I don't understand, because people, for example, I spoke to a chap recently, the chap tell me, oh, Ayo sell out all the land over in the South Coast. I said, who's Ayo? The government. And I said to him, well, do you realize the land over there private lands? He said, oh, not that he here. So you're right, there's no research. People just come up with something, people just say what they want to say. And I really wonder why, because Nevis was a place where we said, boy, me hard to fool, you know, me got to go check that for myself. I got to go find out. A young lady over Bath called me and she said when she heard all the uproar about this legislation, she said she went on YouTube and she watched the parliament for herself. And she said having watched the parliament, Nobody could fool her because she don't know what the thing is about. And in today's world, caller, where with technology, you don't even have to view something right away. You know, you could go back. You could say, oh, this thing happened August 11th. Let me go and check it out for myself. So, not even that people are prepared to do. So, I am a little curious as to when we lost our appetite for hard information, for the facts, and instead we get caught up in the row and what we hear somebody say down by the rum shop. That is what we are taking as fact and going and making noise about. Some of the people who are making noise about the South Coast never been over there. They have no idea where the South Coast is.
No idea. Absolutely no idea of what over there is. I mean, I have gone over there since COVID. When they opened up, that was where I decided to take my walk. You know, more scrambling and straight knees and hands, because my sister and I, with my nephew and my daughter, we were determined that we were going to cross about these points. But eventually we had to give up. I really don't know. But I know that we limit ourselves. Because if I can take the same cell phone that people have here, the same cell phone, and I can talk towards my students, I am an alien in the digital world. They know more than I know. But at the same time, I can introduce them to an app and say, you know, your phone can do these things for you. If your memory is not working, you take your pictures so that you will remember, you know, what this looked like and what that. It never dawned on the children in class that they could do that. So critical thinking, you know, nobody talking to them. No common sense. They don't see the mouse running across the electric wire anymore to deduce what can happen to that mouse as he runs along. Suppose there's a crack in the wire. So it stems down to critical thinking and not talking with our children. That is one of the breakdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when people think that ease of access with the internet and social media and all of that, and you send somebody a picture to say hello in the morning and whatever, you have absented yourself from dealing with human emotions, because there's no emotions coming through that cell phone unless when you tell somebody good morning to their face and you hear the intonation in their voice and you can actually look at their face to see that they had a bad night. And so we have lost that perspective. So how are we going to reason? Sad but true. I think right now Nevians are becoming one of the most entitled people in the world. They're supposed to get it. And these parents here who tell themselves that, well, I didn't have it when I was smaller, so I'm giving it to my children. So they're giving and they're giving and they're giving and they're giving. And they don't want to work with big people emotions. And they make their children their friend instead of mothering them. Instead of being mothers and fathers to their children, they have made them their friends, telling them and sharing inappropriate information about their private lives with children. So the children are stunted and traumatized. And you stunted and traumatized, you don't have time to delve into the book and listen critically for what is going on. And this is where we are failing ourselves.
Thank you very, very much. I truly appreciate your call as always. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, we have half an hour left and the phones are lighting up. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Let's take this caller. Good evening, caller, you're on the mark. Okay, caller, please call right back. We were trying to pick up, but we didn't get you. Please be patient with us. The lines are now open, so if anybody wants to call, let's try this caller. Caller, good evening, you're on the mark.
Hi, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I just have a few questions.
Sure.
So, do you have any clarity on the proposed residential population of the zone? The last time you mentioned population of occupants, which included visitors. Do you have any more clarities of just the residential numbers?
The numbers that we've seen are 7,000 to 10,000. That can go up or down, meaning, of course, in terms of people moving in or out, but I think that's the number that we're working with.
Okay, and so they haven't given a residential population?
Well, I think it's about 7 to 10,000. That's what I'm saying. That's the number that we're working with.
Oh,
But we expect that could be higher or lower, depending on various factors. Certainly, we would expect that, say in high season when there are visitors, that number would be a lot higher than 10,000.
Okay. And would they be able to gain citizenship by investment?
Yes, they would be if they so desire. Yes.
Okay. So would the occupants of the SSV also be able to do business outside of the zone, create businesses outside of the zone, etc.?
No, we are putting in some restrictions. That is the intention, so that they will not be able to purchase property outside the zone. They will not be able to engage in activities outside the zone because, of course, we have been very concerned as a cabinet that if you had incredibly wealthy people, as we expect, coming in to be in this zone, then they would have the money to come outside the zone and do things outside the zone which may not be in the best interest of others in Nevis. So in terms of competition, in terms of buying up property and all of those things. So we are putting restrictions in place in relation to that. We are giving up, of course, because they will have a certain level of internal control within the zone. So it's a trade-off. So we are saying to them, well, fine, if you want that inside the zone, and once you come outside the zone, then you can't expect to do certain things outside the zone. So that is the discussion that we're having with them.
Okay. Have they proposed how they will monitor how people that are not necessarily occupants of the zone will go in and out of the zone?
Yes, we have had quite some intense discussions along those lines, and the suggestion at this point is that it can be done through technology. So currently, for example, as I'm advised, the DIFC, which is a good example of a zone internationally, the Dubai International Financial Center, people going in and going out, it's all done electronically. So when you drive in, your details are captured, your number plate, that kind of thing. So it allows you to do it in a seamless way. That certainly is where we are in terms of a discussion, to use technology to solve that particular concern.
Okay. I'm just going back.
Wait, just stick up for a moment. Let me just add this. And of course, workers in the zone will be treated differently because obviously they're going in every day. But in terms of visitors to the zone, the discussion is whether or not technology can solve that.
Okay. And then just going back to the question on being able to do business. But so if they have children here that are then citizens by birth, then those children will be able to do business outside of the zone?
Well, again, what we're doing is creating a distinction between zone residents, people who choose, Nivisians may choose to go and live inside of there as well. So people who choose to live inside the zone are going to get some special benefits. And we are therefore saying if you get those special benefits from living inside the zone, for example, not paying taxes, you can't expect to come outside the zone and also have the same benefits outside the zone. So,
even if you're a citizen?
Yes, well, remember, the distinction that we're making is you choose to live in this particular area. So by choosing to live in this particular area, you get some special privileges. Let us say you are a citizen of St. Kitts Nevis and you live in Zion. I'm just drawing a reference. You're subject to tax, you're subject to all of the things that you have to pay. Yeah? If you now are a citizen and you choose to live inside the zone, you don't pay any of that. You're not subject to that because the idea behind the zone is a tax-free environment. So you can't, and this has been our position, you can't have your cake and eat it. So that is why we're building in those restrictions in terms of people and what they can do outside the zone.
I see. Okay. Thanks for that. What would happen to any of any historical sites or materials of archaeological value that's found as they begin to excavate the area and build?
Right. So that is a very important point you've raised, caller. That is something that we are trying to work out. I remember I said at the top of the show that there is still a lot of negotiations that are going on. That is one of the aspects because we don't know what's over there. There may be something, there may be nothing. We just don't know. One of the things, for example, has been raised. What if when you start digging you find diamonds? You find gold? We just don't know. I mean, some may say it's far-fetched. So we are trying to negotiate those aspects as well to say what happens to mineral rights, what happens in terms of, as you say, archaeological finds of any significance, and how will those be treated. So that is still a matter that we are discussing actively to come to some understanding as to how, if these things were to materialize, how they would be treated.
And less far-fetched but equally valuable is if they find springs, for example, which I think is probable.
When you say springs, what do you mean?
Such as the Nelson Spring.
Oh, water.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, they have a responsibility to provide their own water, and they've provided a plan already in terms of what they propose to do. There is no suggestion at this point, certainly from our own surveys and analyses, that there is any available water in that area. But we could be wrong, and like you said, they may be able to find water. And if they're able to find water, well, in my view, one of the advantages of that is that they are not on our water supply. There is no intention for Nevis to supply them with water. So they propose a system of lakes and trapping runoff water. They have said based on rainfall, those guts bring down a lot of water. If they could trap that, treat it. So they have a plan in place that they have shared in relation to what they're going to do with water. If they can find water on the property, well, I suppose that is to their benefit as well. But again, these are a lot of what ifs, and we are in the weeds now in terms of our discussions with them. So we have broad principles. We are now drilling down and saying, well, as you've said, what if this and what if that, to try to get the answers.
Right. I'm glad you're in the weeds. Please keep pressing on. Just two more questions. Are there any amendments to the bill or act in motion currently?
No, not at this point. The bill is still, as you know, brand new. We have had a lot of discussions on it, but at this juncture, we don't see that there's anything about the bill itself that is so objectionable that it requires any amendment at this point. There's one thing that I will say, and I will say it publicly because I believe in being forthright. I think at Section 9, when it talks about the oversight, independent oversight body, it uses the language of may, meaning that the Prime Minister for a zone in St. Kitts or the Premier for a zone in Nevis may set up such a body. I really think that that should be mandatory, that that body be set up, because I feel that, and it was pointed out to us at the Chamber, that to ask just the cabinet to be the ones to evaluate and assess whether or not, you know, this is a good deal or this is a good idea, that could benefit from such a body. So I feel that a wider cross-section of individuals dealing with these matters would perhaps be to our benefit. And if that is mandated as opposed to currently not being mandated, I think that that would be helpful. So that's certainly one amendment that I could see. But a lot of the other things, Scholar, I really believe that people are conflating what the Act says with what they've heard about this particular proposal. And
well, at one point you did say it would be useful to include a maximum, and so I thought you might mention that as well.
Well, that too, forgive me, because that was in the original, but I don't think it was a maximum. I think it was a minimum. But there was an acreage, but that was removed because on the St. Kitts end, they said that they had not yet had a discussion in their cabinet about it. So that might be, again, forgive me, another area that we may want to look at. But currently, the framework of the bill, I believe, doesn't create any undue excitement or anxiety as far as I'm concerned. I think the anxiety that has been created is less to do with the bill and more with people speculating what this project is going to be about. So things like your own country, you can fish, you can go to the beach, you know, 6 square miles of Nevis. All of this has to do with people's anxiety about a particular project, not about the bill. Because in truth, if you have an acre of land, going back to Zion, you have an acre of land in Zion and you feel that you could create a zone to generate economic activity, you can apply under the same legislation.
Yeah, you lead right into my last
Yes.
question, and that is Nevis Salt Limited the only company or body that have submitted a proposal for a sustainability zone at this time?
At this juncture, yes, although I can tell you that we have another group that has approached saying that they may have an interest, but they have not actually submitted a proposal. But this is the first that we have seen of its kind, and this, of course, would be a fairly big deal because it's so huge in terms of what is proposed. But the other suggestion from those folks that we met, it was a much smaller zone. I believe they said that what they wanted to do was something that was around like startups, tech startups. That's what they were trying to attract, but we have not yet received anything formal from them. So we don't know if that's going to go anywhere.
Okay, thanks for your
Okay.
responses.
Thank you very much for your call as always. We are 20 minutes to the hour of 10 o'clock, and we're taking your calls at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers if you want to be a part of the show. And whilst we wait for the phones to call, I should have done so at the top of the show, and I beg forgiveness. But let me take some time to express my deepest condolences to Miss Latoya Jeffers. Latoya is the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Health, et al., and I learned last night that she had lost her mom. I have been in touch with her personally, but Latoya, on behalf of all of us in the cabinet, certainly all of us in government, all of us here at Von Radio, I would want to express my sincerest condolences to you and the entire family on the untimely passing of your mom. May you be comforted, knowing that we are all praying for you and hoping that you'd find some comfort and some peace. So, our condolences to you, Latoya. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Good evening, Mr. Brantley. Let me turn down my radio.
Yes, please do.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to hear you.
Yeah, I just get a lot of your ritual all the rest time. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. And before I go, I know you know Orendelle Malone in Toto.
Yes,
Yeah, her husband passed.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay.
On Sunday.
Okay. Well, I extend my condolences, certainly.
Oh.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
All the best to hear. Have
Okay.
a good night.
Okay, you too, and God bless you.
God bless.
Okay, bye. Let me continue to take calls. I think somebody's on the line, so good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Good night, honorable man. Good night. How you doing?
Good night. I'm doing well, man. Good to hear your voice. How you doing?
Hey, not so bad.
Mhm.
Last week I was trying to call you about an issue you were speaking about, where these talk shows, where people say all kind of thing on talk shows and get family and say all kind of thing and having these talk shows.
Yes.
So I was saying that in the BVI, they had person used to do Facebook, do all kind of thing and say about people. And they put down a law. What like tribal law, something like that, something not to be publishing and saying thing about people. And since they put that into law, you don't see much of that behavior, saying writing up all kind of thing about people,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't prove. So I was saying now, if you won't go down the road and put in laws where people saying a lot of things about people and where it's not true, and because they don't have a law about it, they continue misleading and saying things about people, family, government, official family, and things like that. My thing I asking if you weren't thinking about putting a law where stopping people from saying things that they can't prove about family, even your family, and things like that.
Well, caller, I would have to do some research because you did say to me that Tortola had done something, the BVI had done something. I would want to really see what they did, because one has to be careful, and this is the point. We freedom of speech is guaranteed under the Constitution, and it is one of the principal pillars of our democracy. And you have to guard against laws that try to restrict people's ability to speak freely. No, let me say quickly that freedom of speech does not mean that speech is free, because we have a whole area of law called defamation that says if you say certain things about people and those things rise to that level, then there could be liability. In fact, there's also criminal liability that can attend sometimes. So there are some existing rules already. I think what is happening, unfortunately, especially with the internet, because with social media, Facebook and all that, people have even fake profile. So you could be on there under the name John James. Nobody know who that is. And you're saying the most horrible things about people which are not true. People are now using AI to create images of people, create photos, create video, which is not true. And, you know, even sometimes I saw something they call in deep fake, where they have you stand up, put on mic, making a speech and saying things that you never said and you never made such a speech. So we're in a very dangerous world now, and the question is really, how do we respond to it? So I don't know if the response that you're suggesting is the right response, but I do feel that we need to respond, because despite appeals from people like me, it's actually getting worse. It's getting worse because people get up, they use their fake profile, sometimes they're bold enough not even to bother with the fake profile. And what is happening really is a coarseness has crept into our debate. So people now are going after your wife, your girlfriend, your baby daddy, your children. They don't care. They don't care. They're just going after. And that, I think, is fundamentally different to what we're accustomed to and how it used to be. So I am not sure that the solution that you're proposing is the correct solution, but I do believe that we need to look at this very carefully, because appealing to people to do the right thing doesn't seem to be working. And every day that the Lord sent, there is some new false story that is put out there. And all in an effort, some of them are trying to get likes. Some want to say that they're influencers or whatever they call themselves. But they put all kind of nonsense out every day to try and bamboozle people, try and fool people, try and create difficulties in the country. And that is what some of them do. They're not working anywhere. They don't have any gainful employment. So all day they have, and they say the devil finds work for idle hands. And so we are going to have to confront this at some point.
Yeah, because I think the technology world today, you can backtrack where these things coming from also too, you know. Because I know you have people get backtrack and who send all these things, and which I have to get serious about it, because they get away with the thing, they continue doing it, which the network them should be able to backtrack where some of these things coming from, and from time you do that, you see how much of them things cut back. Because it's so prevalent that nothing happening. Mm-hmm. And because remember, these things can lead into some serious thing where people could pay people to do things and things like that, which I wouldn't like to happen. But from last week, I want to ask you this question about it. So because you have to seriously get serious about it, seriously, because nothing happening. It's getting worse and worse all the time. But you pick up a good work. You have people saying that we have battling down here. How you be telling and truth to the public and things like that. But don't study them. But I think you should look into that. What I'm telling you about, seriously.
Okay.
Because which I tell you, it used to happen here.
Well, I'll definitely do some research on it and see what it is BVI has done. Okay, brother?
All right.
Okay.
You have a pleasant night.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. As to the suggestion, caller, that I am telling untruths or whatever. My brand of politics is to be open and direct with our people. And it has served me well. When you're telling lies, I say you got to remember, have a good memory, because you got to remember what you said yesterday. I don't have to worry about that. My brand is to tell people the truth. And I've come here and I think I've earned that reputation, because I've been on this radio station here on my own show for 20 years. And prior to that, I was with the Let's Talk program, and I always call it the way I see it. And I think that the problem that we have is that a lot of people who accuse people like me of lying is because when you actually give them the hard information, it conflicts with what propaganda they've heard. And since both cannot be right, both cannot be true, they choose to say that I am lying because they don't support me. And that has really been the approach. So when, for example, somebody said to me, government is selling out all the land in Nevis to white people, and I said that is not true. A matter of fact, I challenge you to find me one piece of land the government has sold to any white person. Oh, I'll lie you tell. Because the truth is that they hear these things and they simply repeat them. People go to who they support for their information. So if they go to a radio station where the people them chatting foolishness, that's what they regurgitate, is that foolishness. And when you try to correct it with the facts, the easiest thing for them to say is that you're lying, because if they accept that what I'm saying is the fact, then it means therefore that they must come to the inescapable conclusion that that which they have been hearing from the other side is a lie. They don't want to accept that. So when, for example, we talk about who already sell the land to developers, well, people don't want to accept that, so they start to say nothing goes so. But in time, the facts will be revealed. Let's go back to the phones. Oh no, caller, please call back in. We have enough time to take one or two more calls, so please be patient with us. 869-469-1616 and 1700. So the truth of the matter is, let's take this call. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, what's that? What's that? A lady in town, right? Tell me to tell you something, but she know your number. What she got to tell you? But I end up you one, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, if she got my number, let she call me herself.
Yeah, I tell. Look at they want me talk on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
They free to tell you what they want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, next time I tell them on them.
No, you can't say that on the radio. You all right? Hello? Okay, go on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm taking your calls. I perhaps can take another 3 or 4 calls. We have time. We have about, let me see. Let me check my phone. We have this phone here. I can't even tell what time this phone here. We have 7 minutes left. So that's a lot of time. So please call in if you have something to say. But caller, this thing about lying, I think that is just people's reflex. Because if a man has been telling you 1 + 1 is equal to 3, and then somebody else comes and tell you, no, 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Well, one of them has to be lying. And since the person who tell you 1 + 1 equal to 2, you don't support him. Well, clearly you say he's the one who's lying. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
How many access roads are there to get into that zone over on the south side? Is it could you enter it through Brownhill, or could you enter it through the Long Point Road? I mean, it's just one access, or is it two access? How does that work?
But currently, call, I really can't answer you, because the area over there is so washed out. Whatever might have been there as a road, I don't even know. All I could tell you is that I tried to go over there a few weeks, perhaps now months ago, and I was driving a Jeep and I did not get far. So I can't tell you whether there's access coming from Brownhill, or access coming from Bath, or where that access takes you. I do know there's a road if you go up to Sandy, above Sandy Shop in Brownhill, where we call up the hill.
Yeah.
You can make a right turn and you can go down that road. I think that road takes you practically all the way down to the sea. If you go by where the cricket field in Brownhill is, the new play field in Brownhill, you can also go down that road and it takes you down to the sea. That's a road we used to use long ago when people used to go fishing. The fishermen used to go out from Brownhill Bay. So there are historically roads that connect you. But as I said, I do not know what the condition of those roads would be at this point in time. I have not gone to them myself in many years, and I can't speak to it.
So when these developers come, how would they get on the property?
Well, there's access currently. That is, they will have to create roads because there's none. But if they bought property, let us say they bought property, what I could say now, I don't know the area that well. But let us say, okay, let's use the Long Point Port as a landmark, right? Let us say they bought property that is a mile away from Long Point, that is going towards the south. Then they would have to put in that whatever infrastructure to get to their property, and then inside their property they would have to put in infrastructure.
Okay, yeah, I was a little confused about that. I heard a call earlier about a road that's gonna get you all the way over to Indian Castle. I don't think that's happening.
Well, that is not only is it not happening, the caller was suggesting that the government should put in such a road. But, you know, the cost of the government trying to do that, and then I am just wondering at what would be the purpose of that, other than somebody being able to say they drove that way. So the caller then said, well, perhaps it will open up lands that are not part of this zone, but are in the area over there. And I understand that, but my suggestion was that, remember, you could access lands in Hanley's Road and thing by coming through Hanley's Road as well. So it really comes down at the end of the day to what our appetite is for development and how we see that development going. Because what I've learned over there is a lot of what we are now taking as roadway is not in fact roadway. We are trespassing on people's land. Because what existed back in the day, so to speak, as roadway has been eroded and has fallen to the sea.
Okay, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yes, we would have to, and you know, but the discussion is important nevertheless.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. We have about 3 or 4 minutes left, and we can take another call at 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. For those of you who may still want to call and have your voice, lend your voice to this program, you have a few minutes left, and certainly we're taking your calls. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark. Some tune in very late, so we've had a good show tonight thus far. And this show is rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on Von Radio. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. So if you missed it, you can certainly go back and get an opportunity to look at it, to dissect it, and to satisfy yourself. Just to remind those who may have joined late, that I'm very proud that the Cabinet started its series of consultations on this proposed South Coast project yesterday with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the Bankers Association. We had about 50 or so members in attendance. We will continue that consultation on Friday, God willing, where we invited the parliamentary opposition in Nevis to a meeting with the Cabinet to discuss this project. We will continue next week with the tourism stakeholders, with the churches, and we also anticipate having a meeting with youth and having a meeting with the police and fire services. So the idea really is to continue those stakeholder engagements, and then we hope to have a large public meeting, meaning that we throw it out to the general public. I'm also advised that the developers will be sharing information publicly on their development, introducing themselves and really letting you know who they are. So we're in the area now of real information, not the fake stuff that we've been hearing, real information being shared. The banner struck up, it means we have to go. For all of those who called and were part of the show tonight, thank you so much. For those who read scriptures, thank you. For those who came in and had a discussion, had a debate, asked their questions, Thank you. Each one of you has contributed to making this show better and to our objective of keeping reasonable conversation alive and well in Nevis and in the wider Federation. Thank you, good night, and God bless you.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company.